So it's March 10th, 2025 in Hillsborough, North Carolina, New Goloka. And today is the Disappearance Day of Madhavendra Puri. We're going to be reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 4. So this is the story, and I may not read every single verse. This is the story that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told. So starting with text 21. So Madhavendra Puri is the Param Guru of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's the Guru of Ishwara Puri. One Sri Madhavendra Puri traveled to Vrindavan, where he came upon the hill known as Govardhan. Madhavendra Puri was almost mad in his ecstasy of love of Godhead, and he did not know whether it was day or night. Sometimes he stood up, and sometimes he fell to the ground. He could not discriminate whether he was in a proper place or not. After circumambulating the hill, Sri Madhavendra Puri went to Govindakund and took his bath. He then sat beneath a tree to take his evening rest. While he was sitting beneath a tree, an unknown cowherd boy came with a pot of milk, placed it before Madhavendra Puri, and smiling addressed him as follows: "Oh, Madhavendra Puri, please drink the milk I have brought. Why don't you bake some food to eat? What kind of meditation are you undergoing?" When he saw the beauty of that boy, Madhavendra Puri became very satisfied. Hearing his sweet words, he forgot all hunger and thirst. Madhavendra Puri said, "Who are you? Where do you reside? And how did you know I was fasting?" The boy replied, "Sir, I'm a cowherd boy, and I reside in this village. In my village, no one fasts." Now, Madhavendra Puri had a vow that he would not ask for food. And this is important as the story unfolds. So he would not make any endeavor to get food, and he would not ask anyone for food. So if someone gave him food, he would accept it, but he would make no endeavor for food. And we can presume as the story goes on that he didn't think about food either. So the boy continues, "In this village, a person can beg food from others and thus eat. Some people drink only milk. But if a person does not ask anyone for food, I supply him all his eatables." So, of course, Krishna says this in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Yoga kshema vidamyaham, that he takes care of us. And this is actually Krishna taking care of us directly. Right? Earlier in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, "Nir yoga kshema atmavan." Don't worry about protecting what you have and getting things. Just focus on the self. Now, that doesn't mean that we should all take vows like Madhavendra Puri, but the point is that we should have this basic mentality. Krishna is my maintainer. It's one of the 6 principles of surrender, that Krishna is the one who's maintaining me. Even if one is going out to a job and working and getting paid and going to the supermarket and buying food or growing food, even then, one should always have this mentality that Krishna is actually my maintainer. Because we know that even if you work hard, even if you shop, if Krishna doesn't want to feed you, you can't eat, correct? Prabhupada would say Krishna it's like he has 10 hands, that if he gives you with his 10 hands, it can be so much you can't even receive it. And if he takes away with his 10 hands, you can't hold on to it. So this kind of mood. So then the boy continues, "The women who come here to take water saw you, and they supplied me with this milk and sent me to you." The boy continued, "I must go very soon to milk the cows, but I shall return and take back this milk pot from you." Saying this, the boy left the place. Indeed, he suddenly could be seen no more. So in other words, he wasn't seen walking away. He just vanished. And Madhavendra Puri's heart was filled with wonder. Actually, this wonder here, it's chamatkara. This rasa of wonder, Srila Rupa Goswami says, has to be there in any rasa. There has to be some element of wonder in order to have any kind of pleasure at all. After drinking the milk, Sri Madhavendra Puri washed the pot and put it aside. He looked toward the path, but the boy never returned. Madhavendra Puri could not sleep. He sat and chanted the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and at the end of the night, he dozed a little, and his external activities stopped. In a dream, Madhavendra Puri saw the very same boy. The boy came before him and holding his hand took him to a bush in the jungle. The boy showed Madhavendra Puri the bush and said, I reside in this bush, and because of this I suffer very much from severe cold, rain showers, winds, and scorching heat. Please bring the people of the village and get them to take me out of this bush. Then have them situate me nicely on top of the hill. Please construct a temple on top of the hill, the boy continued, and installed me in that temple. After this, wash me with large quantities of cold water so that my body may be cleansed. For many days I have been observing you, and I have been wondering, when will Madhavendra Puri come here to serve me? I have accepted your service due to your ecstatic love for me. Thus I shall appear, and by my audience all fallen souls will be delivered. My name is Gopal. I am the lifter of Govardhan Hill. I was installed by Vajra, and here I am the authority. So several very important points here. First of all, the Lord asked Madhavendra Puri to make a temple on the top of the hill. So, and meant that Madhavendra Puri and the devotees were all walking on the hill. Of course, nowadays, the residents of Vrindavan do regularly walk on Govardhan Hill. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not walk on the hill. And in fact, when he wanted to see the Gopal deity, by some tricks, the deity was brought down so Mahaprabhu could see him. But this is just very interesting that we find that Mahaprabhu did not walk on the hill. So we, as followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we do not walk on the hill. However, in our line, previous to that, the devotees were walking on the hill, and Krishna even had this temple established at the top of the hill. So this is an important point, because sometimes there are changes, right? Certain, just like we find our Srila Prabhupada made some changes from his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Like there's this, for me, very scary instruction from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati that the renunciates who live in the temple shouldn't use like temple vehicles to go to the doctor and get medicine. You know, but our Srila Prabhupada didn't do that. That wasn't his policy. He had a different policy according to different, my presumption is that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati made these very heavy policies about the renunciates living in the temple because of so much cheating that was going on at that time in his environment with so many false sannyasis and false brahmacharis. So he was setting this, you read these standards and at least I become frightened. And I think, oh my God, do I have to follow those kind of standards? But different things are done at different times. Different adjustments are made at different times. And when the Shastric Advisory Council looked at how to have the deities of Advaitacharya, we saw that there was a different opinion between Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Srila Prabhupada. And our conclusion was that as Srila Prabhupada is not only the founder of ISKCON, but also the Acharya of ISKCON, that we needed to follow Srila Prabhupada's instructions for our society, even though his own guru did something different. So here we find also Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu makes a different adjustment than his Parama Guru, or even than the direct instructions of the Lord to have the temple on the top of Govardhan Hill. So I thought that was an important point. Another important point here is that Krishna tells Madhavendra Puri, I've been watching you. We know Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, don't try to see God, act in such a way that God will want to see you. Of course, when you're a kid and you get called to the principal's office, that's usually a scary thing. You're called, oh no, I'm in trouble with the big boss. But the way it's supposed to work is by doing our service. Krishna's watching us, and eventually he comes to see us. Of course, it's interesting he came to see Madhavendra Puri in disguise. Madhavendra Puri didn't realize it was Krishna till after this dream. And he came to him directly 3 times in a dream. So I thought that was also very significant, that Krishna's watching us. How much are we devoted? Usually we think, how can I trust God? Can I depend on Krishna? Is he going to be nice to me? What's going to happen to me? But really, Satchidananda Maharaj likes to say this, that God is watching us and saying, can I trust you? Because if we're going to be pulled into Krishna's intimate service, we have to be trustworthy, isn't it? Right? Are you going to let someone in your home to take care of you if you don't trust them? Right? You have to trust them that they're not going to steal your things, steal your money, hurt you in any way, take advantage of you in any way, right? Betray you in some way. So it's really that Krishna has to trust us, and he's watching us and testing us that actually are we trustworthy. And now Krishna says, I've accepted your service. This is going on, Krishna speaking the dream. When the Muslims attacked, the priest who was serving me hid me in this bush in the jungle. Then he ran away out of fear of the attack. Since the priest went away, I have been staying in this bush. It is very good that you have come here. Now just remove me with care. After saying this, the boy disappeared from the dream. Then Madhavendra Puri woke up and began to consider his dream. Madhavendra Puri began to lament. I saw Lord Krishna directly, in other words, the boy who brought the milk, but I could not recognize him. Thus he fell down on the ground in ecstatic love. Madhavendra Puri cried for some time, but then he fixed his mind on executing the order of Gopal. So this is also an important point, that our main business is service, not just simply relishing ecstasy. I mean, Krishna wants us to relish the ecstasy of his presence and his service. He wants us to be happy in his service. But our mood should be to go on in doing service. Thus he became tranquil. Okay, so I'm not going to read all of these verses. Basically, what happens is Madhavendra Puri goes to the village and he tells everybody about the dream. He gathers people together and they go into the bush. They find the deity there and they're all astonished. You know, if someone comes to you and I had a dream that there's a deity there, right? And then you go and then the deity's actually there. And he was very heavy and said it would take quite a number of strong men to carry the deity. And they carried him up to the hill and they installed him there. And they installed him there temporarily. They placed the deity on top of one rock and they put another rock behind him to support him. And then the Brahmins from the Brahmin priests of the village gathered together with 9 water pots, and water from Govindakund Lake was brought there and filtered. When the deity was being installed, 900 pots of water were brought from Govindakund. There were musical sounds of bugles and drums and the singing of women. So I also thought it significant that the women were singing. In the Abrahamic traditions, the very strict followers of those religions have often prohibited women from singing in any kind of religious situation. Like I know the Orthodox Jews, they don't let women sing when there's men present. That's why, you know, the Orthodox Jewish music is all men. And you have now, like in some of these Muslim countries, where some of the Muslim countries, they prohibit women from even speaking in public. This has now happened in Afghanistan. A woman cannot even speak in public, what to speak of sing. But here we see in our tradition that was not the case at all. That as part of this whole spiritual event of the cleansing and the abhishek of the deity, the women were singing. So some people sang, some people danced, and all the milk, yogurt, and ghee in the village was brought to the festival. Foods and sweetmeats, he said, I cannot describe them all. And then Krishnadas Kaviraj goes on to describe quite in depth. So they had this big bathing of the deity. Then they massaged the deity with scented oil, and then they bathed him again. Then he was dressed very beautifully, and they offered sandalwood and tambula and pan. Then they did artik. And the people in the villages, they brought their entire stocks of rice, dal, and wheat flour, such a large quantity that the entire surface of the top of the hill was filled. How many of you have been to Govardhan Hill? Think about the whole top of Govardhan Hill being filled with food. The whole top of the hill was filled with food. Okay? So then all these Brahmin cooks came and they took all this bhoga and they prepared all of that. So you had Brahmanas cooking the food grains and they were preparing a huge quantity of chapatis with all the flour. I can't even imagine how many chapatis they were preparing. I mean, one time I cooked for the whole Radha Damodar party. The entire Radha Damodar party came to Gita Nagari and I cooked for all those young, hardworking men. And we were filling up, we ran out of containers. We were taking cardboard boxes and like lining them with tinfoil and wax paper and stacking up the chapatis as high as they could go. And I was cooking 10 chapatis at a time over the fire. But I can't imagine, this must have been a lot more than that. Okay. And the Anakut ceremony was performed, so they had big stacks of food they were offering to the deity, and it was just like the ceremony that had been performed at the original Govardhan Puja. This much. And then, although Gopal ate everything offered, still by the touch of his transcendental hand, everything remained as before. And Srila Prabhupada has a very wonderful purport here about the offering of food, and how when we offer food to Krishna, he eats it, and yet the food is still there for us to have the remnants. So we had this wonderful festival going on. And they created a temporary temple. And then at the end of the festival, Madhavendra Puri was saying, feed everybody all this prasadam. And those who took prasadam included not only the people of Govardhan village, but also those who came from other villages. All the people there were struck with wonder, seeing that this was just like the ceremony to worship Govardhan Hill in Krishna's time. And this is also an interesting point, that all the brahmanas present on that occasion were initiated by Sri Madhavendra Puri into the Vaishnava cult, and Madhavendra Puri engaged them in different types of service. So these were already brahmanas, which means that they had already been initiated into the chanting of the Brahma Gayatri mantra. But Madhavendra Puri initiated them into the chanting of the Vaishnava mantra, probably the Gopal mantra, which is the 6 of the 7 mantras that we chant at second initiation. Okay, so when it was advertised throughout the country that Lord Gopal had appeared atop Govardhan Hill, all the people from neighboring villages came to see the deities. One village after another was pleased to beg Madhavendra Puri to allot them one day to perform the Anakut ceremony. So the same ceremony went on every day for quite some time on this scale. Another village would come and bring more fruit and have this other grand ceremony. And then another village would come, and then another village would come. And they would bring to the deity as much food, grains, ghee, yogurt, and milk as they had in their village. The ideal place to execute Krishna consciousness is Vrajabhumi or Vrindavan, where the people are naturally inclined to love Krishna, and Krishna is naturally inclined to love them. I thought, what a sweet verse. Of course, Krishna loves everyone, Suridam Sarvabhutanam. He's everyone's best friend. But also, Ye tamam prapajante tam tadaiva bhajamyaham. As we reciprocate with Krishna, he reciprocates with us. And as the residents of Vrindavan love Krishna in this very simple mood, so Krishna's also loving them in that way. The people of Mathura, who are very big capitalists, also brought various presentations and offered them before the deity in devotional service. So I also find this significant. I know in our community there was one devotee very concerned that his son wants to make a lot of money. So his son is only like 11, 12 years old, and he's already like doing research and to have a good business. And he's saying, I don't want my son to be a materialist. So I was talking to someone about this. I say, we also need Vaishyas. It's not that we don't want to have any Vaishyas. They also have a place in society. And here we find that these big, Prabhupada's calling them capitalists, Dhani means very rich, literally, and Prabhupada's translating as capitalist, that there's a place for everyone. In fact, Krishna appears himself in a family of Vaishyas. Thus, countless presentations of gold, silver, garments, scented articles, and eatables arrived. The store of Gopal increased daily. And now we have the Kshatriyas. One very rich Kshatriya of the royal order constructed a temple. Each and every family contributed one cow. In this way, thousands of cows became the property of Gopal. So this was a typical thing, that you actually say that the deity owns some property. Eventually, 2 Brahmins in the renounced order arrived from Bengal, and Madhavendra Puri, who liked them very much, kept them in Vrindavan and gave them all kinds of comforts. Now that's interesting because Madhavendra Puri didn't have any personal means. So it meant that he was collecting from the villagers and he arranged to give comforts to these brahmanas he then also initiated these brahmanas into the Vaishnava mantra and he gave them the daily service. So this goes on for 2 years. Then Madhavendra Puri has another dream where Gopal says, "My bodily temperature still has not decreased. Please bring sandalwood from the Malaya province and smear the pulp over my body to cool me." And Prabhupada talks about how this was a province in India, not referring to Malaysia, although Malaysia also used to grow sandalwood. Bring sandalwood pulp from Jagannath Puri. In other words, go to Jagannath Puri and get sandalwood that has grown in the Malaya province. Kindly go quickly, since no one else can do it, you must. After having this dream, Madhavendra Puri became very glad due to ecstasy of love of Godhead, and he went to Bengal. Before leaving, now this is also important, before leaving, Madhavendra Puri made all arrangements for the regular deity worship, and he engaged different people in various duties. Then, taking up the order of Gopal, he started for Bengal. So that's very important. If we have some regular service that we're doing, we need to make provision for succession, and we need to, if we pass away from this world, and we also need to make provision if we're going to travel. We need to have people who are trained in our service so that if we travel, if we get sick, or when we pass away, there's not a disruption. And this concern with training others is evident throughout our Shastra. You notice in the Bhagavatam how all these kings are really like intent upon having a son. Have you all noticed that? It's like a major theme in the Bhagavatam. And you think, what is this with these kings? But what they're interested in is succession. They want to make sure they have people trained. So even materially, good management is that. The very famous book, Good to Great by Jim Collins, a seminal book in management. He talks about that the top leaders, they're more concerned for the mission than they are for themselves. A poor leader wants people focused on them. And as soon as they retire or pass away, if everything falls apart, they don't care. But a good leader is setting things up from the beginning so that things can go on without them, which is why Srila Prabhupada set up the GBC in 1970, even though I think we can honestly say that nobody was really qualified to be on the GBC in 1970. Would you say, Mars, that that's an accurate statement? Yeah, I mean, at any level, on the level of life experience, maturity, managerial training, even time, practicing Krishna consciousness. But still, Srila Prabhupada would rather have leaders who were immature and made some mistakes and made sure that the movement was going to go on. And the fact that Srila Prabhupada set up this kind of system during his presence here is a big reason why our movement is still going on and is basically united. I mean, there must be splits and schisms. That happens historically. That can't be avoided. But basically, we have gone on as a unified movement. And such would not be the case if Srila Prabhupada was just interested in, I mean, we talk about putting Prabhupada at the center, but Srila Prabhupada put Krishna as the center. Prabhupada actually did not put himself at the center. Prabhupada made a provision so that things would go on. This is extremely, extremely important. It can't just be any of us who have responsible service here. We can't just be that we say, okay, Leela Shakti, I'm going by. But there should be some provision set up so that things can go on, someone that you've trained. And because life is uncertain, we should be training someone from the moment we take on a service. Basically, as soon as I started taking care of Tosi, I immediately started training Santosh, right? I was training the poor guy for about a year, probably. Wrote up a whole list of instructions and, so this is actually very, very, very important that we put the mission primary. We put the service as primary. So then Madhavendra Puri arrived at the house of Advaitacharya, And Advaitacharya was very pleased at seeing the ecstatic love of Godhead in Madhavendra Puri. And Advaitacharya begged to be initiated by Madhavendra Puri. So, of course, it's very sweet because Advaitacharya is actually the Supreme Lord. And yet he's asking his devotee to take this role of initiating him. Going into South India, Sri Madhavendra Puri visited Raimuna, where Gopinath is situated. So he saw the beautiful deity, and then he was chanting and dancing, and he sat down there and he asked one of the brahmanas, what do you offer to the deity? So this is very normal if you're running a center. This is also actually, by the way, good management. Something we don't do enough of in our movement. But good management is you know of other places that do something similar to you, and you find out what they're doing and what they're doing well. You know, if you're running a school, see what other schools are doing. If you're running a college preaching program, you see what other college preaching programs are doing. See what you can learn from them. So he's saying, okay, well, what do you cook? Now, this is also an interesting verse. From the excellence of the arrangements, Madhavendra Puri understood by deduction that only the best food was offered. You know, I visit a lot of places, and sometimes it's very obvious. You just look around a little bit, and you can see what the standard is without asking. You understand? Yeah? So he can understand this. So he's thinking, I want to make these similar arrangements. And the Brahmin says, well, we offer a special kind of sweet rice that's not offered any other place in the world. And as they're talking about this, the offering is being made. And so Madhavendra Puri thinks something that he never thinks. Because remember, he doesn't get food. He doesn't beg for food. He doesn't make an endeavor for food. He doesn't think about food. And so he thinks, if I could taste it. Now, this is also interesting. He doesn't ask for the recipe, which is what I would do. I would say, please give me the recipe. But he's thinking, if I taste it, I'll be able to deduce the recipe. He must have been a very good cook. That would be a very good cook. You're just going to taste it. You're going to figure it out. But he's thinking this while the offering's being made. So he becomes completely devastated. First of all, he's thinking about eating the prasadam before the Lord's eaten it. And second of all, he's thinking about eating anything. So he's just devastated. He just leaves. He's like, I can't stay here anymore. I'm an offender. And he goes to the marketplace where he chants the Hare Krishna mantra, and then he takes some rest outside in the marketplace. Meanwhile, the Brahmana has a dream that the deity says that, please get up and open the door of the temple. I have kept one pot of sweet rice for the sannyasi, Madhavendra Puri. This pot of sweet rice is just behind my cloth curtain. You did not see it because of my tricks. A sannyasi named Madhavendra Puri is sitting in the vacant marketplace. Please take this pot and deliver it to him. Now, we call the deity a thief here, but it was his own sweet rice. It always amused me that we call him a thief. You know, the sweet rice was offered to him, but then the boga is taken off the altar. Now, normally when we offer boga, it's not in a place where it would go behind the deity's cloth, right? We set the tables in front of the altar. So if there was a pot of they've already made the offering, now they're about to take it off in a few minutes. And if one of the bowls was missing, but they didn't notice it, and then they have a dream that it's behind Golokananda's cloth. So that's what happened. So the Brahmin gets up, he bathes, puts on fresh cloth, finds the pot, goes in the marketplace, and says, with the sannyasi whose name is Madhavendra Puri, please come and take this pot of sweet rice and enjoy the prasadam with great happiness. So Madhavendra Puri comes and he eats this sweet rice, and then he's thinking, oh boy, everyone's going to hear about this in the morning, and I'm going to get a really big reputation, and I don't want that. I don't want people praising me. So he quickly leaves and goes to Jagannath Puri, but his reputation follows him to Jagannath Puri. But there he tolerates it because he thinks, I've got to get this sandalwood and camphor for my Gopal deity. So he's there in Jagannath Puri, and he gets this the sandalwood and the camphor. And a lot of the areas are being run by the Muslims, and they're very strict about what's transported. So Madhavendra Puri is given release papers to bring this back to Vrindavan. So as he's carrying this, again, he stops at the temple of Gopinath, and I think it's so sweet that when the priest sees Madhavendra Puri again, he says, he offers respects to him, and then he says, I have something for you. What do you think the priest has for him? Sweet rice. So he says, I have some sweet rice for you. It's just so charming. And actually made Madhavendra Puri eat the sweet rice. So then at that time, Madhavendra Puri has another dream, and Prabhupada talks about how exalted Madhavendra Puri was, that the Lord appears to him 3 times in a dream. So Gopal comes before him and says, Madhavendra Puri, I've already received the sandalwood and camphor. Now just grind this together and smear it on Gopinath. There's no difference between my body and Gopinath's body. So Madhavendra Puri stays there, and he engages some persons to grind the sandalwood, and he pays their salary, which is also interesting. He says, these 2 assistants will regularly grind the sandalwood. You should also get 2 other people to help. I shall pay their salaries. 2 points that stumped at me. One was that he was paying them, and the other was, how did he pay them? People had been giving him money as he was traveling. So he stays there till that's exhausted, goes back to Jagannath Puri, where he stays for Chaturmasya. And then he goes back to Vrindavan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Madhavendra Puri was so fortunate that Krishna personally appeared before him on the plea of delivering milk. 3 times the Lord gave orders to Madhavendra Puri in dreams. Being obliged because of the loving affairs of Madhavendra Puri, Lord Krishna himself appeared as the Gopal deity, and accepting his service, he liberated the whole world. Okay, wanted to end with Lord Chaitanya recited the famous verse of Madhavendra Puri. That verse is just like the moon. It has spread illumination all over the world. Continuous rubbing increases the aroma of Malaya sandalwood. Similarly, consideration of this verse increases one's understanding of its importance. As the Kaustubha Mani is considered the most precious of valuable stones, this verse is similarly considered the best of poems dealing with the mellows of devotional service. Actually, this verse was spoken by Srimati Radharani herself, and by her mercy only was it manifest in the words of Madhavendra Puri. Only Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has tasted the poetry of this verse. No 4th man is capable of understanding it. So only Srimati Radharani, Madhavendra Puri, and Lord Chaitanya can fully understand this verse. Madhavendra Puri recited this verse again and again at the end of his material existence. We're observing the anniversary of his passing today. So this was the verse that he said over and over again as he left this world. Thus, uttering this verse, he attained the ultimate goal of life. Aridina dayardra nata he matura nata kada valokyaste ridayam twad aloka kataram daita brahmyati kim karom yaham. O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O most beloved one, what shall I do now? So we have like 2 or 3 minutes if anyone has any further comments or questions, chastisements, additions. Apurva Prabhu, something you wanted to say? Well, it's just straight CC. Yes, Drishta Prabhu. Right now you have it reversed. Ishwar Puri serving Madhavendra Puri. Yes. That's all right. I think all of us are a little distracted today. So yes. We have, another important point is that particularly this manifestation of love of God in the conjugal rasa starts with Madhavendra Puri in our Sampradaya. That Mahaprabhu says this is the seed of this meditation on the Lord in this way. as one of the primary focuses of our sampradaya. Thank you very much. And again, if everyone could please pray for Mother Krishna Priya, that she can have an auspicious journey.